Silver is $100, $50, or $200, or $1,000. Okay, if it's $1,000, the car will cost $900 more than it does today. But on a $50,000 car, it's not a big enough difference to say we'll halt the production line because we're missing an ounce of silver. They have to have it at any price.
We're going 4 digits silver. I think you could have, you're going to drop 9.99. That's when I'll start stepping back, buying more silver, and maybe rotating out of the silver side of things. And in an overshoot, as I say.
Before we start, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because what's unfolding right now in gold and silver is not a normal rally, and most people still don't understand why it's happening. Silver is already surging alongside record-level gold prices, yet mainstream commentary keeps treating this like a temporary spike. Francis Hunt and Clive Thompson argue that this move is structural, not speculative, and that silver's real repricing hasn't even begun. Once you understand what's forcing silver higher, regardless of price, you'll see why this market could shock even seasoned investors. Let's break it down clearly.
People aren't talking about gold and silver right now. They aren't talking about it at all. It's almost meaningfully. You get a little bit of mention, but it's almost, well, it's got to be near a top right now. It's always to say, well, that's it. It's done well, but, no, it hasn't even started. Haven't even started. We're going a lot higher, a lot further. That's why I'm the silver messiah. And silver goes to the single digit, and I think it could even go 3. Once it's gone single in a blow-off moment, because you just don't start mines that fast. 60-70% of production is byproduct. They aren't down there for the silver. They're down there for the zinc, the copper, the gold, the other items. They're just getting it while it's there, if it's lying around in small numbers. How do you boost that supply? You don't. You can't. They're not there for it. They're choosing to dig a hole there for zinc, not for silver. That might, it's just incidental. They pick some up. You're going to need much higher prices for grades that are reducing to be worth getting. And the only thing that fixes it is price. And you've got the ECG, the whole battery and agenda that BlackRock brought you. People don't hate BlackRock enough. You've got that whole agenda that's still in the West made it very hard. Places like Canada and various other places. Permitting takes ages, etc., etc. How do you fix supply issues with that? A very long time and much, much higher prices for what's around. So we're going 4 digits silver. I think you could have, you're going to drop 9.99. That's when I'll start stepping back, buying more silver, and maybe rotating out of the silver side of things. And in an overshoot, as I say, in the most bizarre overshoot, just like we called zero oil and negative you got negative in the futures. No one would have, if you go onto poly markets and put a bet for that, no one would be betting on that. You could actually have a spike in silver that meets or even slightly beats for a second even the price of gold, just because of structural issues. It wouldn't be permanent. But look what happened in oil. You have to have a complete shakeout. And because people can't suddenly, Samsung can't start using gold or platinum, in lieu of silver. It's a different metal. It has different characteristics. You have to check, you have to retool your production lines, you have to do everything. So who knows? You don't want to play too long in the overshoot phase.
If manufacturers need the silver, and if it's not there, you can't stop the entire production line. If you're going to put, let's say, $100 worth, let's say 1 ounce of silver in a car, that's $100 perhaps nearly. So your car production line can't stop because you're missing an ounce of silver. So it doesn't matter whether that silver is $100, $50, or $200, or $1,000. Okay, if it's $1,000, the car will cost $900 more than it does today. But on a $50,000 car, it's not a big enough difference to say we'll halt the production line because we're missing an ounce of silver. They have to have it at any price. If they were to revalue gold at a higher price through a little bit of accounting magic, they would be able to reduce the debt by the roughly $1 trillion that they would make by putting it at the new price. Of
Or
course,
they could send, or they could
more
send
sense, well,
check.
10,000 or 20,000, wouldn't it? Great move, yes.
Yeah.
Revalue gold at 20,000, take 1,000 of that and send it to every American. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've had the silver production below the silver consumption by the electronics industry and others. So yes, for many, many years, silver supply exceeded the demand. So those silver stocks were building up above ground. 4 or 5 years ago, it flipped. And that gap now, the deficit in silver has been getting bigger and bigger year by year, with the result that those silver stocks above ground are starting to diminish. So as they diminish, people become more and more, those who are still holding onto those silver stocks become more and more reluctant to sell. But nothing has changed in the supply and demand. The demand isn't going to go down. There's no reason why it could. I mean, you can't stop making an iPhone because the silver costs maybe another 5 cents of silver in the iPhone. So the silver demand is not going to go down, and the production cannot go up because it takes a decade to bring on new mines.
Francis Hunt's central message is simple but extremely powerful. Silver's price is becoming irrelevant to the buyers who actually need it. Silver is essential to modern civilization. Electric vehicles, solar panels, smartphones, data centers, medical equipment, none of these function without silver. There is no realistic substitute, and switching metals would require redesigning products, retooling factories, and shutting down production lines. That's why Hunt makes a point most people overlook. Even if silver were to rise to $1,000 per ounce, the additional cost in a $50,000 vehicle would be roughly $900. That's not enough to stop production, it's not enough to delay delivery, and it's certainly not enough to risk losing market share. Manufacturers will simply absorb the cost, because shutting down a factory is far more expensive than paying for silver. This is what creates inelastic demand. On the supply side, Clive Thompson explains why higher prices won't fix the problem. Nearly 60 to 70% of global silver production is a byproduct of mining for copper, zinc, and other base metals. Miners aren't digging for silver, they're collecting it incidentally. That means supply cannot respond quickly, no matter how high prices go. At the same time, silver production has been below consumption for several years. Above-ground inventories that once buffered shortages are shrinking, and as those stocks decline, holders become increasingly reluctant to sell. This is where the real risk appears. Industrial users are starting to question just-in-time supply chains. Car companies, electronics manufacturers, and solar producers can't afford disruption. Some may turn to futures markets hoping for delivery. Others will try to secure physical metal immediately, at almost any price. That's when markets stop behaving rationally. Hunt warns of a potential violent overshoot similar to what happened in oil markets in the past, a temporary spike driven not by speculation, but by physical scarcity. Silver doesn't need investors to panic for prices to explode. It only needs industry to compete for limited supply. That's the message most people are missing.
And suddenly everybody wants a tangible asset like silver, and you find you can't get it at all because the banks are shutting the doors to stop you getting it, and there's all the gold and silver shops aren't selling it, and your friends have all got there before you. I would say get the physical while you still can, because the time might come when you can't. So suddenly large companies which need silver are wondering if their supply chain, which has been just in time, will still be available just in time, or whether they should be stocking up with a longer supply. So I think there's a worry, a growing worry, by the consumers of silver, car companies, solar companies, and electronics companies, to say, how can we secure our supply of silver longer term? And some of them will be buying the futures and hoping they can get delivery. Perhaps they will, but others are saying, let's get it now. I still haven't bought the gold and silver, I was basically trying to buy whatever they've got in the 2026 series of coins, whether it be from Australia, Spain, UK, wherever. I'm not. There's absolutely zero plan of mine to sell, and certainly if I was going to sell, I'd be selling the paper stuff first rather than the physical stuff. I can tell you that some silver places like Degussa in Geneva, I know for a fact they're currently out of silver. They have zero. I mean, they put silver now down as a strategic reserve, as has China. And obviously they're not going to get a lot of silver at the old price. They have to bid higher to get that strategic reserve going. But we don't know they're doing it because it's not published. But effectively, government agencies are now free to go and buy silver if they think they need it, whether it be the military or the electronics industry or whatever else. in today's world, where we're not on a gold or silver standard, the prices are very different from one place to another. We all know that coming to Switzerland, it's very, very expensive to buy a cup of coffee or a McDonald's or whatever you like. But you go to some other countries, and it's very, very cheap, comparatively
Yeah.
speaking. And that's a reflection of what one paper currency against another. But if we're all on a gold standard, I would have thought the prices would start to converge, so there would be a difference.
When you had sort of Wall Street silver chase, and it's all small retailers all taking leverage and buying and hitting the stack, what you have is a speculator with leverage-based boom. And the way you kill a speculator with leverage-based boom is you up margin requirements. So the main mover of the market is the speculator who's been given too much leverage or has managed to get access to any amount of leverage, and you make that leverage more expensive, less available, and much more capital down. You do those three things. It's the same as house prices. If you have to put more money down, the interest rates are going higher, which we're predicting, by the way, with the debt-based collapse. You can afford to pay less. You can't chase for that house, and prices come down because everybody else that's relying on a mortgage is in the same boat as you. That's how you cull and take the knees of a speculative with leverage, retail-driven market. Now you've got to ask, is this market that market? A retail speculator with leverage markets? No, you and I might be doing that, but we're the sideshow. We're ants. This is major industry physically demanded market. So what's different about that, and what is the net effect of that? Well, what it happens is when you increase margin, the way the futures market work is the buyer has to put more margin down and might pay more interest for the lesser margin that he gets to run in and whale in. But the same applies to sellers who do sellers contracts. You might say, okay, but why is that a problem? That means they're less selling. No, the mines sell in the futures market, and it goes up by day, the cost as well. So the longer they're in, the more it costs them to hedge, and they sell forward production. So when you increase the costs of them forward selling their production, and by duration as well, they say, well, we'll hold off a little longer. We're saving some money by not forward selling, and the price in the market is pretty good, as you can imagine. So they then don't bring it as soon, and they don't do it for as long, and it reduces supply of producers, which is the miners, making available because you push their cost. Remember, they have an accountant and a treasury that will be looking at this and go, they made it more expensive for us to go there and sell it. And we sell it and we hold the contract until, for 3 months. Why don't we just wait till the last week? You've saved a bunch of money by doing that. You've saved a bunch of money. And they're the ones that bring big contracts. You and I might buy one contract which has 5 by 1,000 industrial bars. Most retail, not buying 1,000-ounce industrial bars, by the way, in the futures market. I have, but most retail, 10 ounces, 100 ounces, maybe you get 100 ounce, from Scottsdale, and it's a nice little brick. People aren't buying the ugliest sin industrial use margin. So it's not retail that's actually pushing the futures price up. And if you make the cost higher, people will be more tight and delay offering that contract. So what actually happens is you're killing the offer stack. There's a bid stack. There's the midpoint where the trade is taking place and it's flickering along, a little bit up, a little bit down. And there's all the offer stacks. At that price, I'm happy to sell my forward production. Remember, markets are used not just for speculators. There's the commodity, the business interests, the operators. Now, I'm trying to remember what the phrase is. I'm having a bit of a brain fart, but the industrials, it's the commercials, they call it, when you get the breakdown on retail, commercial, speculators, etc. The miners are the commercials. So they'll choose more selectively. And given the price market, they also don't need to rush. So why should they pay more to rush to do what for a long time, just to hit a rate when it's already deep in the money and possibly going deeper? They're in greed mode now, and they can hold off. So what it actually does is it reduces the offer stack. And then those that are squeezed and in a suppressed situation, think UBS, as if the story is true. We don't know. There's rumor, there's everything. We've always suspected certain banks are going to be hit, American ones, European ones. They now have to chase much higher to get a certain number of contracts closed. So they have to bid more aggressively. And that's why you're getting the parabola move. And you've got that 60-year of suppression all having to be made right very, very quickly. And you've gone and made it worse. You've poured fuel on the fire by making it expensive for suppliers. Remember, it's not being driven by retail guys with leverage. We're not it. It's being driven by lack of supply and real delivery. The markets have turned real delivery. Where you previously used to have low percentages of delivery and it was all speculate and cash market, you're now having 60% being marked for delivery. That changes the game. It makes it a real market, and that's when you start to get real prices. Inflation is basically the excess issuance of money. Zero issuance of money, zero inflation. It's simple as that. But anyway, that taken. So you haven't even got to the 2011 high, and there's people already calling tops that don't realize it. You haven't got, if you throw up the gold-silver ratio, we haven't got to even 30, never mind what I expected to run, which would be at minimum single digits. Where are you at there on the gold-silver? I can't see the value.
51.85.
You're still north of 50. You're still north of 50. You haven't made 30. Everybody thinks, well, the modern era is now 30, 33, you know. That means nothing. That we are resetting this entire era of financial debt from Federal Reserve era, 1913. This is what's being reset. There's a whole new financial world coming in, and they want digitization, which is funny enough why I mentioned to you the one crypto that has really outperformed is Monero. Everybody wants something physical that they can hold that can't be tracked and traced. And the one crypto that's currently running, which we call utilizing HVF method, is the one that's longest standing and most believable for having some genuine security against privacy invasion. I don't think anything digital is going to be perfect, but this is one of the sincerest attempts. And you might get most of the pyramid, but at the very top, they might have something. But I expect the criminals themselves to utilize this token digitally when they're getting out of the banks, as well as buying gold and silver. So actually, the fiat and debt debasement is causing a panic and a run for physical monetary metals because of many things, preservation of capital, but also its privacy about how much and how wealthy you are. Further to that, the best token in the last 7 days that has stormed from 25 to 18, 17, 15, and is now one place away from being in the top 10, is a security and privacy token. And the most, as I say, the best that we have, without vouching technically for it, my preference will always be for something I hold in my hand over digitization. So you're actually having melt-ups. Our community is in both, and we're killing it. We're killing it. We're killing it on all fronts. And that's debasement. This is anti-dollar trades. We coined the phrase anti-fiat. Gold is the king of anti-fiat. Silver is the queen. Gold gets stored and bullionized, and jewelry can be recycled. But the queen gets consumed and is in shortfall. So gold has a turbocharge on it because of the debt fiat debasement, and it holds value. But the queen has a twin turbo because it's also getting consumed. The recycling brings some of it back, but some of it is at these prices not worth it. And there's a deficit to supply and production.
This is why Francis Hunt and Clive Thompson don't see silver as just another trade. Gold remains the ultimate store of value, but silver is both money and an industrial necessity. Gold can be recycled. Silver gets consumed. That gives silver a second engine of demand at the exact moment supply is breaking. Now, the real question is yours to answer. Do you think silver's industrial indispensability will force prices far higher? Or do you believe the system can still suppress it? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want analysis that explains why markets move, not just after they move, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay ahead of what's coming. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.